Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Reading Talk. I am your host, Miss Seisha, and with Real Reading Talk, we discuss the real systemic issues that are at the very core and foundation of why there are low levels of literacy in the Black community and ways in which we are able to combat these issues. And the reason why I came up with the concept of real reading talk, because in the Black community, when we are trying to discuss real issues, we tell a person, hey, look, give it to me real. Give me that real talk, that straight up, no filters, all right? No chaser, if you will, okay? No sugarcoating. And so that is what we do here. This is the space that I've created on my podcast, Real Reading Talk. And I thank you all for joining me today. Now, I am so happy that I have a wonderful guest on my podcast today. He is someone that we go way, way, way back, y'all, to Kent State. You know what I'm saying? And I am so happy that he had accepted my invite to come onto my podcast. And let me give you guys a real quick little intro before he comes on in and talk a little bit about himself, and we engage into this great conversation. And let me add this too as well. Real Reading Talk is not just about talking. It's actually going to lead us all into actions, because my goal is to help develop a culture of literacy in the Black community. That is my ultimate goal. We want to get back to our roots, our African roots of having literacy being high on our value ladder. All right. So with that being said, here it is, this brother here, brother Morris Ervin, Musa.
Yeah.
He is affectionately called as well. He is an educator, consultant, entertainer, writer, and youth development professional. 20 years, y'all, in education, 20 years in education, mentoring, community building, and equity and anti-racism work. Been married to a beautiful, brilliant Black Muslim sister, 23 years, and she is a veterinarian, y'all. Okay, shout out to her. The sister is dope. And yes, that is his queen. Okay, believe that. And he has two young adult children in college, y'all. Oh my God. Y'all, please give it up for brother Musa in the house, y'all. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. Appreciate being on this show and such a crucial topic, literacy. Thank you for all that you do, for our community with literacy. Like, this is the number one topic that we all need to have many, many conversations about. So it's an honor to be on your podcast. Thank you so much.
You are very well. Thank you again. Like I said, it's an honor to have you here. I mean, the things that you have been doing in the community. I mean, like you said, educator, mentor, entertainer, that's definitely for sure. And all of those things, just fuse together to empower our youth. I mean, that's just awesome. And we really, really appreciate you. And I really want the listeners to get to know more about you. And then we can delve into in terms of, your outlook, in terms of what I said about the low levels of literacy in the Black community. So first, I want you to tell everybody when did you decide to become an educator?
Yeah. So I decided to become an educator when I was a high school student. Actually, I went to Cleveland Heights High, Black and Gold Tigers, and I was an average student, very smart, but I didn't feel like my teachers really saw the greatness in me, or they really challenged me, right? So I just really just did enough. So I was really curious about becoming an educator because I actually wanted to do a better job than my teachers did with me. So that was one of my initial motivations to become a teacher. Because I had some really poor, I had a few good ones, but systemically overall from pre-K to 12th grade, I had more bad ones or underperforming teachers or teachers that I really feel like didn't really tap into my potential or other young Black males' potential also. So that's why it was something in that that really sparked my interest of wanting to pursue education. And that's why I majored in education when we met at Kent State University.
Wow, that's awesome. And you know what's interesting, what you just said in terms of you felt like you weren't challenged enough. And I think, and we're going to get more, we're going to definitely tackle more into that because I definitely think that that's one of the issues that we are dealing with in terms of Black children in the classroom. A lot of times when you see those behavioral issues is because of the fact they feel like, okay, this information that they're learning, it's either is boring. They feel like it don't relate to them, or they feel like they're not being challenged. They're like, okay, I need something that's going to stimulate me, and especially from the Black male, perspective. That's something I've definitely seen. And even in going into that, let me ask you, so being an educator and being in the classroom, tell us, what was it that you saw in terms of Black children when it came to reading? What was the experiences, that you were privy to when it came to Black children and reading?
Yeah, so for me, I taught social studies, American history, world history, geography, geopolitics, African American studies. And for those courses, like history is very like information based, and literacy is a huge part of really being able to understand and to be able to have a conversation. For me, my classes were based on really having the knowledge, but applying the knowledge, whether in role plays or debates or many different types of ways. There are 9 ways that we learn, right? 9, intelligence that we have, not just the reading and writing, but the body kinesthetic, the music rhythmical, right? So there's many different ways, auditory, visual, spatial. So to be able to really have fun and tap into our creativity in my classes, like reading is fundamental. And I was very big on words because when I studied education, I studied the fundamentals of not learning to read, but reading to learn. So I did a lot with the content. It's not necessarily about the content. It's kind of how you get the kids to comprehend and analyze and synthesize the content and interact and engage with what's in front of them. And the number one reason why I was so effective was prior knowledge. I was very creative about tapping into the baby's prior knowledge, their neighborhoods, their communities, their culture, something that interests them, right? So, teaching is reciprocity. Once you tap into what they know or what they're interested in, then there can be a mutual exchange of what you're trying to offer them. But I noticed that a lot of my babies in the class, even in high school babies, I call them babies, they really didn't come to the class with a real yearning for reading, right? Low level vocabulary, low level comprehension, even basic words, I would say, like aristocracy or things of that, like basic 6th or 7th grade words, they were struggling with in a high school class. So we did a lot with vocabulary, even reading the textbook, right? A lot of times they would see different words and want to just kind of glaze and skim over them. And a lot of my lessons, it's not about the quantity, but the quality. Like we would just take a lesson and really focus on some of the major words. If we talk about words like nationalism, colonialism, imperialism, and I would relate those words to their everyday experiences to see if they can relate so we can go a bit deeper. But I just noticed in the classroom unwillingness, a fear, a lack of exposure to just words and just a limited vocabulary. And so part of my challenge as a teacher was to really expand their vocabulary. And we did a lot of journaling. To help them to really make observations about the things that they see in their world so they can be more inquisitive, right? It's not just reading is, right? If you just present it as just reading is boring. But I have many different ways to help them engage with the process while teaching American world or African studies.
That's a lot to unpack. And I'm glad you said all of that because that right there, I mean, the aspect number one, what I picked up on, I like how you said teaching is reciprocity. You know what I'm saying? In terms of, you being able to teach and engage, then you want feedback from them. activating that prior knowledge. I mean, and then that is something that is just so key. It's like, it's more than you. I like your approach. And I know the kids miss you in the classroom. It's like your approach is like, okay, I want to dialogue with you. I'm not going to stand up here and just, give you all this information and then you just listen to me. And I don't, try to delve into what your experiences are, where it is you come from or different things like that. You are all about, no, we are a community, because that's what I'm hearing. It's about a community. It's about us engaging and, and listening to each other and, and then you telling them about your experiences and they coming back and telling you about their experiences. And that right there is key. And what people have to understand, that right there, those are the foundations of reading. Right there, and you just dropped a lot of nuggets, just in this first, 12 minutes, of our, conversation. And so what I want to do though, because we're going to come back to that. I want you to talk about, why do you think that is, in terms of where did that come from, where you have Black children having those low levels of vocabulary, not, having the basics. So I want us to go back to but I want to ask you, how did you grow up in terms of literacy in your home? Was there lots of conversations, was there a lot of reading that you saw, from your parents? Was that something, did you get those stories read to you before bed, and those sorts of things? Did you grow up with a lot of print, a lot of books in your home?
Yeah, so I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say about a 6 growing up in my household. My parents were working class. They were working class, so they had to work a lot. But at the same time, education was really important. And I remember before pre-K, first of all, it starts with having to write your name. Like literacy is learning how to write and spell your name. So my name was Morris Ervin Jr. And I remember my dad, he must have been out of work. He had a lot of time on his hands. But I remember him sitting me at the dining room table and just making me write my name, right? Making me write my name. And in addition to that, we would watch the news and talk about the news, right? And that was really important. And then my parents would take me to their places of work. So I would get exposed to the technical vocabulary of what my mother did as an X-ray technologist, and my dad was a maintenance man, right, in CMHA. So just being involved in my parents' careers, it opened me up to having different conversations about the different, like what my dad did for a living. And he would teach me words. Like he would teach me, the words. I wasn't too much interested in because he was a maintenance man, but it took him a lot of skills in reading manuals, right? He had to follow instructions. So again, I was teaching me that discipline to say, hey, son, I'm taking you with me on a job, in an apartment complex, and we have this project in front of us, and he would pull out a manual. We would have to read it to figure out how to put something together. Even during the holidays when he would, I would have toys and things, right? He would make me sit down in front of him and go over and read instructions. So it was really opened me up to that world. A lot of times us as families, we watched a lot of documentaries on music and culture. And we had, so literacy, in addition to like the paper and the print and the reading stories to me, we had that conversational literacy or that cultural literacy that really exposed me, to our culture. And that really put me on my path. So yeah, so I would say about a 6, absolutely. Yeah, they were not too strict, but no, those are some of the things that my parents did for me early on, establishing my foundation.
Wow. I'm just surprised. Yeah, I mean, now why would you say a 6? Because, and the reason why I'm asking that is because the way you broke that down, I'm just thinking about in terms of, number one, you said the conversational literacy piece. In terms of you guys watching documentaries together and your dad taking you to, the job with him, and then you guys having to read the manual together, and then you going on the job with your mom and all. All of that is great. And I'm glad that you put it in that context in terms of when you broke it down, like, okay, so you were surrounded by literacy. So what would make you give it a 6?
I think 6 because, like, you're right. And I'm glad you asked that question. Because I guess in the formal sense, and I'm glad you poured this out of me, comparing myself to like some of the white students I talk to or the white professionals when we talk about there is their way, and this ties into the classroom, how white middle class people teach our kids. It was very formal. It was very read this newspaper, read this encyclopedia in Britannica, read, and then so that like the authoritarian power over discussion. It wasn't a body kinesthetic, it wasn't experiential, it wasn't creative. So you're right, let's bump that up to an 8 or a 9 because my experience was just as valid as theirs. So thank you for challenging me on that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. And you, look, iron sharpens iron, okay? Because I mean, for real, you made me start having to go back and think about my own self in terms of how, in ways in which I was surrounded by literacy. And again, I was thinking about, oh, I didn't get the stories read, you know, before bed. And I wasn't surrounded by, you know, I didn't have all of these books, you know, in my homes where it was like these bookshelves full of books and all of that. You're right. You're right. But I like how you broke down that conversational literacy piece too. That right there was cool. And I want you too to actually, one of the things I want you to do is tell us again about the 9 different ways of learning. You know, I like that aspect. Could you share that real quick so I can, and then I'll actually too, for the listeners, what I'm going to do, I am going to put it in the description box so you all can, you know this, man. This is told y'all, this brother going to be dropping some nuggets. I told you.
Let me see if I can get the 9. So Howard Gardner, I think is Gardner.
Okay.
He did his research about 9 multiple intelligences. And the ones that we use that are very dominant is really the verbal linguistic, right? The reading and the writing and the regurgitation of knowledge.
Okay.
So we have the verbal linguistic, we have the auditory, we have the visual spatial, we have the body kinesthetic, we have the music rhythmical, we have the naturalistic, which means in nature.
Okay.
Yeah, learning in nature. That's 6, right?
That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I got verbal. I'm gonna repeat it back to you. I got verbal, auditory, visual, spatial, kinesthetic, music, naturalist. Now visual, because visual and spatial, that's separate. And then kinesthetic, music, naturalistic.
Yes.
7.
So that's 8. Is that 8? That's 7.
That's 7.
I'm missing 2 more. I can't remember the 2 more.
That's okay. No, that's but you said but what I'm going to do is I'm going to have everybody, I'm going to put in the description box, Howard Gardner.
Oh, I got it. I got it. Let's go. Let's go. Hey.
Silent.
Silly. Yeah, so you have the intrapersonal, which means your feelings, connecting with your feelings, like self-reflection, feeling, being in tune with your emotions. And that's all about, that's how I was from jump. And my teachers did not validate that from me. I had to learn right through a lot of my own trial and error that I'm a feeler, right? And then the interpersonal, which means learning in community, socialization, group, teamwork, team building, coalition building, and consensus building. Let's go.
Come on. That's what's up. This is what we do, y'all.
Bro, yeah.
Real reading talk. That's right.
Yeah.
That's what's up. And I told y'all, real reading talk, y'all. This is what's up, man. I mean,
those last 2. Yeah.
Yes. Verbal, auditory, visual, spatial, kinesthetic, music, naturalistic, intrapersonal, inter. Come on. Did I get an A? I love it, y'all. Oh my goodness. We are talking again here to Brother Musa, Morris Ervin, educator, entertainer. All right. Mentor. Let me pick them up. All of that. Let's see. Here we go. Youth development professional, writer, consultant. I mean, 20 years in education, y'all. Okay, 20 years. All right, and right here, y'all know what this is. This is what we're doing. This is education right here. Right. Again, we are trying to, number one, when it comes to that whole aspect of why Black children, and even in the Black community in particular, why there's low levels of literacy, you cannot start the story in the middle. And that's what I talk about a lot. We can't start the story in the middle because a lot of times, people start to, when they start looking at the Black community when it comes to literacy, they start, oh my goodness, man, those, poor little Black children, they just can't read. And, and their parents, they're not reading to them. And, and you hear all this stuff and it's like, that, here we go once again, and then of course, here's another nonprofit that comes up to try to help them poor Black babies and them poor Black
Profit off
families.
our pain.
Exactly. Say that one more time.
Profit off of our pain and misery, or perceived pain and misery, right?
Thank you.
Because we gotta believe it for them to achieve it.
Thank you.
If we believe it, they're gonna achieve it.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That mindset, and now that's going to segue us into my next question in terms of what I was asking you with the children, that your babies, as you affectionately called them, they coming into your classroom and they did not have the vocabulary, or they did not have the interest, or they, like you said, had that glossy, that glazed look when it comes to the text. Where did that come from?
Yeah. So it's funny. I'm gonna use a more recent example. When I left the classroom, I did a lot of community work. I worked in a lot of neighborhoods in Cleveland, whether it be the Mount Pleasant, whether it be Garden Valley, the Fleet, Slavic Village area, Union Mile. So working in those communities, you learn a lot. There's one particular school I have a real affection for. It's called Anton Verdina, 71st and Kinsman. I've done a mentoring program there for the last 4 or 5 years. And you see the cycles of trauma. You see the cycles of trauma. And, when you're in a perpetual state of trauma, fight, flight, or freeze, right? You can't have access to your frontal lobe, the seat of your rational thinking, your critical thinking, your executive functioning, which means you can, make decisions, and you can pay attention and concentration and et cetera. And when you interact with the parents, you see that manifested in sometimes their babies' inability to regulate themselves, regulate their emotions, and to really be grounded in who they are. So for me, looking at it from that perspective, if the mom or the dad had a negative experience with the school system from pre-K all the way up to 12, or dropped out of the school system, they have this nefarious outlook of education. They have this nefarious, distrustful outlook of teachers, whether you're Black or white. And to me, that resistance, whether it was explicitly or internally, is passed down to their children. And so it's like a miseducation, right? One of my favorite books is The Miseducation of the Negro by Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Yeah, right? So just the trauma and the us really believing the narratives and the stereotypes that we're not worth much, right? And all that plays a part in, like you saying, not really having that knowledge of self and our true history about how, how intelligent we are, how skillful we are, how resilient we are, if we just talking about just as learners. So I see that, in the children, that's really passed down from the parents' unresolved pain or unresolved, experiences of trauma. I'm just talking about the education system, seeing that passed down, to their children. And just being in survival mode, right? When you're in survival mode, it's hard to reflect critically about yourself, about your family, about your circumstances, about what came before you, when you're just surviving, Mm-hmm. So that's really, my biggest take. Because when I sit down with my mentoring programs with like the worst behaved kids and Anton-Gordine, I'm talking about the young. They always give me the young men that are like the wild, the ones that so-called can't listen, right? Can't listen, can't learn, can't everything.
Off the hook.
And they want me to come and do a mentoring program. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about those multiple intelligence, I get them moving. I open up a book and read them a story. They're right there reciting what I've read immediately, right? Put on some music, get them in their bodies, get them out of their head, read them a story, right? Have some sensory learning, tactile, right? Some visualization, some guided meditation. Right. And then we have these like higher level conversations, and they're in their executive functioning, because they've been in their thinking brain has been engaged through their bodies. So I can come into any situation around the country and have the kids close that learning gap or their education gap through these practices that have been in our culture for centuries, right? Music, movement, storytelling, visualization, self-care, mindfulness, that's part of our heritage. So I guess I asked a part two to your question, like how do you close that gap? I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. It's really getting back to our culture. You because any right you and those kids when they see me activated and they see me enthusiastic about it, and I'm engaging, we're engaging together collectively. That's an interpersonal learning. Then they become more enthusiastic and more motivated and more inspired based on what I'm embodying through my body, right? Through the messages that I'm transmuting to the young brothers. So then they're immediately man, I had them reciting higher level words in like third or fourth grade, memorizing words, using the definitions in the story, call and response. And they learn literacy. So for us, it's just about knowledge of self, our approach. And we have to educate our children. We can't wait for, these systems, these racist systems to educate our children. We have to educate our children on our own. And in the home or programs such as yours, programs such as mine. We can't wait from the outside in. We got to do it from the inside out. We're going to keep just having the same tired, stale conversation, waiting for somebody else to save us.
Thank you. Thank you. That right there, I mean, my God, for real. I mean, you took us, I mean, on a journey that a lot of times, a lot of people, like you hear some of the things I've definitely, of course, I've heard this from people like Dr. Joy DeGruy. She talked about that in terms of that whole, flight or fight, thinking mode and not having the executive functioning of our brains, working because you're always in survival mode, So I definitely, I know you're aware of, folks like Dr. Joy DeGruy and, of course, Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu, people who been in the game in terms of saying all of these different things. But what's really just so sad though, is that we still, you'll have all of this different information and everything. But I think one of the issues that we're dealing with is that we need to make sure that this information that's valuable is getting out to the masses. Because I think that's a big, it's like, just like our conversation right now we're having is just so golden, but my prayer is that, people who really need to hear this, that they are listening and they are able to get privy, to this knowledge so that they can understand that, hey, look, we can solve our problems. Just like you said, we need to get back to our cultural roots, all of those different things that you broke down. And one of the key things that I want to add to that too is the relationship aspect, because I'm quite sure, and I definitely want you to expound upon that some more, you being a Black male. And more than just being a Black male, because I know I've seen, you can have somebody who's a Black teacher in the classroom and they come off sometimes, unfortunately, kind of negative, or maybe they feel like, they're supposed to do it according to this white standard, if you will, instead of, trying to connect and say, you know what, I'm from this community, what I'm saying? I grew up, what I'm saying, in this Black skin, and a lot of different things that our kids are dealing with. I know I've dealt with as well. And I know that not every Black person has dealt with living in poverty, because you have some Black some Black folks, they were raised, what I'm saying, in households where they didn't have to experience that survival mode, and they did experience conversations with their parents and all that type of stuff. But I'm talking about, disproportionately, in terms of in the Black community, where you have, a lot of our Black children, especially when you have them in the inner city schools, like an Anton Gradina, which I've subbed there, by the way, so I know what you're talking about, in which, like you said, the kids, they have to, get past whatever it is that they were dealing with, before they got to school. And then you want them to sit down and, what I'm saying, be able to be engaged and all that. And then when they don't, then they get in trouble and all of that type of stuff. So I want you, though, to speak to the aspect of just being a Black male and just how engaged you are with the kids. How key is that? How crucial is that?
Yeah, it's very crucial. One of my mentors, he's in South Central LA, Brother Torrance, Brandon Reese, and he taught me a lot when I was a school teacher out there. He put me on game, and he had a program called See a Man, Be a Man. And, you know, black men, a black man that is well studied, I mean, right, doesn't really have to say much. How we move, our presence. I walk into a building, he walks into a building, we command respect. And of course, we're going to engage, right, and smile and really take care of our children. But that black man, from the way we move, the way we talk, the way we interact, our swag, our creativity, our love, our passion, our energy, our strength, our resilience, the struggles that we've been through, like telling our story, you can see it in the baby's eyes. Mm. Man, they love my stories as a school teacher. They still love them now, right? Just being able to connect around story, right? And the black man, it's struggle. Like black woman, that's why we're together, because our story is struggle, liberation, and that's how I teach. I teach for liberation. You can't be neutral. If you are African American and you want to assimilate into this mess, and trying to be neutral, trying to be upper middle class, all that mess, you're going to lose out. But if you understand what it means to struggle, and if you understand what liberation means and freedom means, this internal process to liberate minds and bodies and spirits, and if you come with that type of ideology, oh man, you free those kids, you free the parents, you free the communities. So I've been in South Central LA, right? I've been in Cleveland. I've been in some of the roughest cities across the country, and Compton, Watts, and it's been the same approach. Me being embodied in who I am, me studying our ancestors, me studying my own pain, right? You come in there with a higher power. This is a spiritual process, right? Knowing yourself, knowing your worth. Literacy is being tapped into something greater. And as a black man, that's what we have if we could just tune into it. So yes, being a black man is so important. And the kids I'm just not just black kids, all kids. Because I'm in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, I'm in like these white spaces, and it's the same in allness, if that's the word, we're gonna make up a word, in allness, okay, of our bigness, and that's just being in tune to what it means to be a black man that's educated. What did they say? Did Malcolm say that, Brother El said that's the most dangerous weapon is, I don't know if he said it or not, but just a black man, who's educated, right? Who's intellectual, who knows how to use his mind as a weapon, right? That is a weapon. And I love to see brothers and sisters who you know me, I love music, right? I love style, I love fashion, I love material things, but I love my spirituality, right? And I love my intellect, more than anything, because that's the reason why I'm experiencing this level of abundance and success and prosperity, because of willingness to be literate, the willingness to investigate things underneath the surface, the willingness to study myself, study my family, study my culture, study my religion, study my history, study the world. Didn't philosophy start in Africa? So these things, when I walk into the classroom, that's why kids immediately hug me without even a word exchange. This has happened to me so many times. I walk into elementary school, they had those kids in the line like they about to go to a concentration camp. They walking in them lanes like they about to go to Auschwitz. I hate that, man. And then kids just come up and just hug me, and they just get this energy and get back in line. That's happened to me so many times because it's that being tapped into that energy and that power that we have as black men.
Wow, that right there again, you just dropping it. This is just, and of course, as you're talking, I'm taking my notes because I'm like, okay, these are things in which, number one, I want to be able to have recapped, when we are, at the end of our conversation.
Okay.
And one of the things, just like how you said, in terms of the willingness to be literate. I like that. That is powerful. That is deep. And then the aspect, though, too, a big part of what it is that it's the authenticity, the realness, right? The realness. You know what I'm saying? And you know how kids are, just like you said. Especially, especially obviously if they're younger, of course, unfortunately, when kids start getting, older and, if they got a lot of that mindset already set in from their parents, a lot of times it's harder to break through. But in particular, especially with our younger children, it's like you said, I've seen that, them walking through the halls, and, you got the teacher staring over them, looking at them like they are like the teacher's the warden, and they're on their way to, jail, concentration camp, whatever the case may be, and right there, it's like the kids, they already feel on edge. So
Yeah.
already when it comes to them trying to learn something, it's like that's already hindered, like you already talked about before. They feel like now, okay, I better not mess up. Oh my goodness, man, I mess up. I'm in trouble. And in particular with our Black children, so that aspect, and just like you said, it made me think about what Gil Scott Heron said: revolution starts with the mind.
Mm.
Because you talked about in terms of the liberation aspect, that aspect of that's what's being tapped into, when you have that Black teacher, and in particular that Black male, and how engaging they are, just like how you are, you're tapping into that liberation piece, because everybody, that's a human natural thing. You want to be free. You want to feel free to be who you are authentically. Not somebody telling you this is how you are supposed to behave. Now, of course, we know in the world, yeah, you have to have boundaries, and we have rules. So I'm not definitely not saying that at all. You just do what you want to do. No,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? But in terms of your personality, just like you said, how your personality is, you're engaging, you move around, you like your music, you know what I'm saying? You're active, you know what I'm saying? And it's funny because that's how I am, just that the animation, you know what I mean? It's like, when you have that a part of you, of course, we know there are times in which we have to contain ourselves or whatever the case may be. Exactly. You learn that, but still, it's like, okay, that doesn't mean I suppress it to the point to where I'm like, okay, I can't be me.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, they want the kids to. If we talk about mindfulness, right? I'm a mindfulness practitioner, and but mindfulness is very whitewashed because they want to use it to shut the kids down, not wake the kids up. They want to use it as a behavior modification technique to keep the kids quiet. When you want to tap into, you want to activate something that's laying dormant in these kids. So just think about how, yeah, something like mindfulness is used because of, if you talk about white middle class teachers, there's an innate fear of Black bodies. There's an innate fear of Black children, and they feel innately inferior. So they want to, like, they always try to, the banana in the tailpipe. They're always trying to use something that's spiritual, but they're trying to use it to control and subdue. And when I'm in all white spaces, I say it. I'm like, no, this is not a behavior modification technique. This is a spiritual liberation technique. So if you're using this to control kids, then you got to look at your practices. As an educator, you have to look at your intention. So yeah, so I think when you talked about kids being fully self-expressed, that's like that's a human need, right? You said authenticity and autonomy and integrity, and once that's allowed to thrive with boundaries, I can lead. I've led meditations with about 300 like Black elementary school students in a gym with all white teachers looking at me crazy. Like, how did he do that? Because I ain't trying to control them. I remember many times they would bring me in and do like a motivational day. I would get the kids turned up. We dancing with each other. We flossing. We just moving, like creating that energy, like energy. And then I lead them with a meditation and get and do a visualization, and it's silent in that gym. Can't even get 20 kids to be quiet for a whole school year. I come in within 20 minutes and have complete influence.
Wow. Wow.
We tapped into something greater. And I always say white middle class because that's the dynamic in schools. 85 to 90% of teachers are white middle class females.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that to bring in a statistic or to observe and describe a dynamic that's creating suffering for whites and Blacks, because nobody's acknowledging the suffering that's happening because there's not a respect for Black culture. And yes, we need to respect it also. We need to learn it. But at the same time, those who are in power, I think it's a greater responsibility for them, to be open, to be in service. I feel like I have a level of power and privilege in my life, which makes me more humble. So I'm always talking about power dynamics in schools because it's nothing but power. It's nothing but power. Kids get two choices: to submit or rebel. like you said, you got the ones that, don't want to disappoint.
Right.
You got the ones that's like, yeah, I'm gonna be me, but they
Right.
don't even know who you are. So then being them is like kind of like getting kicked out of class.
Mm-hmm.
So you got these two dichotomies, right? These polar opposites. Kids that are afraid to be them, and kids like, man, screw you, I'm gonna do what I want to do. And then you always have like these extremes, and you have this whole middle ground where you can explore. What education is. I think education means, is it educere? It's a Latin word that means to draw forth from within.
Okay.
And I love that. I think it's spelled Educere. I might be mispronouncing it. Educere. It
That
means
sounds
to
good.
draw.
Okay.
Yeah, to draw force from within. So that's my goal, right? Is to get underneath the surface, because the kids are, there's a lot on the surface that they're dealing with. And, it's important for us. When I'm in front of kids, man, it's like, man, I see an opportunity to shape young minds and to shape, like, you can change the course of somebody's existence just being a positive, inspirational teacher or mentor. And that's why teaching is a noble profession. Yes. Parenting is a noble profession.
Hello.
Mentoring, because we're shaping lives.
Yes, that's right. Wow.
We're shaping lives.
Wow. And it's interesting that even when you started talking about education, I started thinking about, I believe it was Dr. Amos Wilson. I know you know brother Dr. Amos Wilson. For those of you who don't know, please Google who he is. He is passed now, but he was an activist, an African. He had the mindset of trying to empower Black people and understanding, our culture, our history, and understanding how important that is. Just like Musa has eloquently told us, that right there is the core, the essence right there of education. And education is not just the mere spitting out of facts. Okay, just because somebody, and that's the thing, just because you have a child who is able to get, all A's or whatever the case may be, that does not mean that they have been educated. And for those who understand, especially in this, white supremacist system that we are in when it comes to education, it's really about indoctrination. It's about trying to shape, that child's mind into thinking, okay, this is the standard. Just like it was this quote, oh my goodness, I was trying to remember it. I just had heard it from, I was listening to a podcast, Dr. Greg Carr and Karen Hunter. They do this podcast on, and they aired on YouTube. And he quoted from Dr. Asa Hilliard. And I know he has an African name. And but he talked about in terms of, he said the first thing that Dr. Greg Carr said that Dr. Asa Hilliard said was, there is no achievement gap. And he was basically saying the gap is from what it is that you already know between what it is that you are capable of achieving. Okay. And I heard, I said, oh my God, all right, I'm about to write that down. Man, I got to post. Because I'm like, dang, man, I'm like, but again, all of these things for real, that root that goes back to our African ancestry, our history. You think about the griots, you think about the storytelling, just like you said, how, you go into the classrooms, they love to hear your stories. And right there, that's literacy. And that's what I want. And that's what I'm really, really trying to drive home, to my parents, to my Black parents, for real. It's like when you just talking to your children, as they call it extra talk. Okay, I know you know about the extra talk and the business talk, that they tell you about, being an educator. The business talk is, for those who don't know, business talk is when you're telling the child things like, go do your homework, go make up your bed, go take your bath, sit down for dinner, get up and go brush your teeth, a lot of directions, not really no type of engaging conversation. And it was a study done by, I think it was Hart and Risley. They did a study, and going into different homes. They went into, white upper middle class homes, and they went into, lower income homes where it was a lot of Black families. In this study, I can't remember the year it was done, but basically that's when they found out the whole aspect. I think it's like the 30 million word gap, that kindergartners coming to school with basically. And they noticed one of the things was that that extra talk was not happening in the homes where there was lower income, in particular
Yeah.
Black homes.
Yeah. 'Cause-
You know what I'm saying? Do you want to, do you
No,
want,
no, no, I remember this. No.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. And so that extra talk, just like you said, in terms of, see, that goes back again to our African ancestry, that oral storytelling, that oral history that we come from, engaging, having conversation, the elders, they're telling the stories and the kids listening, and then even just having them conversations with your parents, you seeing your parents, and they're cooking and all of that, and what is that you're making? And they want you to come in, and they're, come here, baby, you can help me, come help me make these biscuits, come, what I'm saying? Can you get me the pepper? You know what I'm saying? All of that. And then, tell me about, then that's when the conversations, because it's comfortable. Like you said, you're not feeling stressed. You're not in that survival mode feeling, you feel relaxed.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I remember my dad, we both, played pool, and I remember the first time he introduced me to a level. So he was always teaching me, like, I know how to level a pool table because he had a leveler, and when the pool table would be off, he would use that as an opportunity to teach me.
Mm.
And I remember, or use that as an opportunity to teach me about how to measure, like, the numbers on there, right? Like how to level things. So again, like you said, that extra talk is a bit what's missing now, right? We can say is a bit missing in our communities for whatever reason, but that type of those type of information is what I'm sure you pass on to your children, and what I pass on to my children, using those opportunities. And they bring it up now as young adults. Like, yeah, man, remember, Dad, when I was in, sixth grade, and you introduced me to that word surplus, and I use that. So just different concepts that, our kids retain from that extra talk. You'll
Mm.
be surprised, right? And like you said, yeah, we, discipline, and like you said, the business talk, but that extra talk is subtle, but it's powerful.
Yes, yes, it
Right.
really is. And that's the thing. It's like, I think when we are able to articulate that, in the Black community, especially when you have communities, a lot of us, we, dealing with the economic aspect, what I'm saying, anything positive, Black folks, we always at the bottom. So, we know that, literacy, even though for real, it says, I was looking up some information about that. Half of US adults can't read a book written at the 8th grade level. Now, it didn't just say Black, it said
Yeah.
adults, period. Okay, so the low levels of literacy, with, let's again, real reading talk, it's not just in the Black community. All right, this is something for real. This is nationwide. America has some of the most, highest numbers when it comes to illiteracy. What I'm saying, for real. But of course, as we know in the Black community, as we know, it says that when a white person has a cold, we got pneumonia. All right. So even though they might be dealing with issues like we are, but for us, it's like, it's way, way, way 10,000 times worse. Okay. So with that being said, I want you to be able to hone into, again, as we start, coming, towards the end of our podcast. I want you to be able to uh, give us some different practical things, easy things. Before we do that, actually, let me do this real quick, because I want to ask about the whole thing with COVID. That's what I wanted to do. With the aspect of our families now having to have the children at home learning. Okay. And I know I've been seeing, and I know you've seen as well, where you'll have, Black folks, putting these memes out there, putting, talking about, man, I see what these teachers is talking about, boy. Oh my goodness, man. I can't wait till these schools open. Boy, I got to deal with this. And then, unfortunately, you would hear, horror stories, what I'm saying, about kids, not, being abused, unfortunately, while they're at home, and doing this distance learning, and, you hearing all these negative things. But my thing is, I want you to address in terms of, how we can get the information out to the parents in terms of ways in which they can use this as an opportunity to start honing in on educating our children ourselves. How can we do that?
Yeah, I mean, you talked about mindset. Mindset is so important, and a crisis is a gift in disguise. And this COVID has revealed something that's already been there, right? It just exposed it even more, in terms of the issues. And you know, um, there's been an opportunity. I know a lot of folks that seen a positive in this has seen this as an opportunity to spend time, right? And time is something you can't get back. Time is something that, right? That's the most expensive thing that you can't get back. So, this COVID situation and being spending more time with your kids, right? If you see it as a burden, and then just like you mentioned about this whole narrative about right now we see what the teachers are going through, but if you understand your role as the child's first teacher, it's all about how things show up, right? It's all up. If it doesn't show up like this, then there's no point. But if you see your role, it's all about roles, like the black man and the black woman and the black family. And if you see it as an opportunity, right, to spend time with your kid and to be their first teacher, right, then COVID is an opportunity to heal, to connect, to spend time with, right, to slow things down, to reflect critically, and think about how, I mean, we're 70s and 80s kids, multiplication tables and going for walks, and having to be creative and not having things laid out for you. This is definitely what COVID has created, an opportunity, for parents to really be a bit more creative with their children, if it shows up that way, right? I mean, if it shows up that way, and that's what I would say, right? You have to think differently, and yeah. So that's why I want to really, yeah, really end on that. Well, not end on that, but to speak on that. That's what I want to say on that point. Like, this has been an amazing opportunity to slow things down and to have a different perspective, and right, and to really be with your kids. But if you see it as right,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
even my kids are in college, even when they're adults, when they came home
Mm,
abruptly from college because of COVID,
yeah.
we did what we did when they were 6 and 7. We told stories, we cracked jokes, right? We spent time with each other, we entertained each other, we
Mm,
talked, we analyzed movies, we watched documentaries. So I
wow.
think that was the culture that I created in my family, like the interpersonal learning, the interpersonal learning, self-reflection, talking about systemic injustices, like talking about current events, talking about our own emotions, talking about our grief. So this COVID situation for me, raising my family, even though my kids are adults, it just revealed what I've been educating them all along about spending time and spending quality time. So we talk about COVID revealed how much do you really know your kids? How much do you really know your kids? And this give me an opportunity, if it shows up that way, to really connect
Mm,
kids on a deeper level, which is tough if you haven't really connected and engaged with yourself. If you never take a hard, long look at yourself in the mirror, you sitting there with 6 kids, like, mommy, what we gonna do today? You having a lot of anxiety and discomfort and dis-ease. And what are we gonna do with our dis-ease? You want to drink it away, you want to smoke it away, you want to text it away. And COVID exposed everybody.
ooh,
People couldn't run anymore. People couldn't hide out anymore. It was just you, your spouse, your significant other, and your children. 7 days a week. You couldn't hide. So this is a real opportunity to see what people are really made of. I mean, in that regard, right? Not to invalidate, us in our communities suffering and dealing with some of the, systemic inequalities.
yes, yes.
But at the same time, we're not victims. We're not victims. We're very resourceful. We're very creative. And this is a real opportunity to take a look at ourselves if it shows up that way. I look at myself. I caught COVID. You know what I'm saying? I got COVID. You know, I had to take a real look at myself. You know, and catching this, you know, it allowed me to kind of test the principles that I teach people: the self-care, the introspection, this being positive, you know, the dealing with all the shame and the guilt, and transforming that into something that's going to propel me even further. Like, I had to practice what I'm preaching, you know, being depressed, being sad about this, feeling guilty, you know, and I had to really use this as an opportunity to go a bit deeper within myself, to come out through the other side. And are we willing to look that fear in the face so we can work through the fear, work through the distress to get to that, which is liberation. I feel more liberated now than ever because I went through it.
Wow. Y'all see why I had this brother here, Brother Musa, on my podcast, Real Reading Talk, right here, because he brings it real. I mean, these right here, these are things in which a lot of times either people don't know how to articulate it, or we'll have these, like, you know, conversations, you know, which is good, you know, barbershops, beauty salons, or, you know, you have a conversation with, you know, with your girl or your dudes or whatever the case privately. But I'm glad we're able to talk about this out in the open, you know, on this podcast, so people can understand all of these things you're talking about is about liberation. And just like the name of my YouTube channel is called Reading is Freedom.
Right.
Because that's the key, one of the keys to reading, you know, being free. Okay, being free, just like you said, being free to be who you are. And I love that point, how you said you're getting to know your kids, but before that, you got to know who you are first. I mean, that right. I'm like,
they look at you like this. They look at you like, "Mommy, what are we gonna do today?"
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
They looking at you, and you like, you've never had to face. Never had to really, you know, because whether you're rich, poor, black, or white in America, you can hide out with these modern conveniences, with this technology. Like, you can find a lot of ways to hide out.
It's true.
COVID exposed a lot, you know, and just to really acknowledge what you're doing with this literacy. I don't have my own business because I went to college. I have my own business because I read. I got more of an education after college than I did in college.
Come on, say that for real. That's real reading talk.
My willingness to be literate, not waiting for somebody to give me the answers.
Come on.
I took what I wanted. I don't sit around waiting for somebody to give me that, right? Give me this education. And the education they give black people is that we're inferior. We're second-class citizens. We don't deserve to be at the table. We better go at the little kitty table on Thanksgiving, the little crumbs.
Right.
Be at the table. Sure. Wow. The little, my knees hitting the table. That little. I want to be at the big table. I got room. Putting us in the corner. I want to be at the big table.
Oh, that's right.
Like people, 57 years old, still eating at the kitty table. And you supposed to be happy. You better be happy. These all sorts of hitting the table. Please. You better wake up. Start reading.
Really? Yes.
Table.
Thank you.
Or make our own table.
Thank you. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, Musa. We got to build a table. Build our own table. Quit always waiting for somebody to invite you in and all of that.
Pull out the sky.
Exactly. And then what's so sad is that you want somebody to invite you. They already told you they don't want you in. They already said, they made it clear, I hate you. I don't want you in here. And then finally, because a law has been passed to let you in, then it's like, okay, all right, y'all come on in. And then you get dogged out and spat on and all. Just like you said, okay, you can come in, but you got to go sit at the little table though.
A grown
you got to sit at the little table. Salty as heck. Salty.
Eating a little juicy. You can't even have real juice. You got a little juicy juice, a sippy cup. I don't want no sippy cup. I'm 62 years old.
See, real reading talk, y'all. This is what it is, y'all.
Yeah, man. You know, it's about respect.
Yes.
One word, man. Self-respect is important. And I don't do this whole black on black stuff, but respect is important, man. So respect, you know, I respect myself first, man. I respect my people and my community, man. I'm not looking to get respect from without, but I demand it because I got it from within. So I demand respect everywhere I go.
That's right.
I'm not looking for them to respect me, but I demand, I assert it, right? Because when I show up in this world, man, I'm confident. So reading also is freedom, but it's also self-confident because you know how to talk to people and you know how to listen.
Yep.
My white folks be like, how'd you know that? I mean, where did you?
Please. Come on. All day. All day.
We ain't supposed to read.
Exactly. And
As much as I breathe, man.
That's
I write, I journal. That's all it is. We articulate. You talked about this conversation. We're critical thinkers.
Yep.
Like you said, I think we just need to bring this in a more systemic, mass level way to get our people to understand the nuances of what we already have inside of us.
Yep.
So,
That's right. And the way you bring in it though, it's just that whole aspect, that confidence aspect, you know what I'm saying? And just like how you said, what made you start your business, it wasn't because of the college degree that you have. It's because of through you reading.
Voracious reader.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's self-knowledge.
Yep. That's
right. Up to all different types of knowledge, whether it be about business or history or culture or intelligence or psychology or neuroscience, philosophy. I studied all that and I applied it to my business.
Wow. And these are the jewels and the nuggets that our people need to hear, because we already know, and we got to go into the statistics that are obvious, but usually when you have kids who aren't reading, 9 times out of 10, they don't see their parents reading. 9 times out, if you have a kid who's not into studying and learning, 9 times out of 10, they're not seeing their parents or caregivers around them doing that. So that's something right there, like you said, in terms of how you make sure you help to develop, you and your wife develop that culture of literacy in y'all's household, where knowledge and reading and learning is high on y'all value ladder. And that's something that our families need to hear. And then the aspect of you saying, in terms of you taking ownership of your education, you taking ownership of your learning, you seeking that knowledge, not waiting, not saying that. And then because that's crazy. When I would see those memes and the parents talking about, man, I see what these teachers are talking about. I'm sorry, man. I was the one to sit over thinking, I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, no. See, I didn't, even my kids would go to a traditional school, whatever the case, because I've off and on, I homeschool, I've had a traditional school, home, all that back and forth. But I've always told my kids, I said, listen, no, your education started here at home from me and your dad, okay? I said, that's where it started from. That's the foundation. I said, anything that you get from there is supplementary, whatever the case, you take the best and leave the rest. I said, but you don't know who you are. Okay? You ain't gonna let nobody tell you what, you know what I'm saying, that you are waiting for them or you waiting for them to teach you stuff. I'm like, no. You be empowered. And even when I would go in those schools and substitute and tell those kids, I tell them kids the same doggone thing I tell my kids. I said, no, you don't wait for nobody. I said, you learn yourself.
We ain't talking about Jada's lyric. We talking about Seisha's lyric.
I'm done.
Back.
Yo. See, this is y'all.
You're gonna do a reprisal of that movie.
We go back to Kid State, y'all. Kid State, Eastway, pool table. That's how we can talk like this to each other. For real, man. I mean, real. Oh my goodness, man. Oh wow, man. You just, cool. I love it. I love how, and see, and the thing is that the young people need to hear this, and adults too. they need to understand that whatever profession, whatever it is that you decide to do, make sure that whatever you're doing, number one, that you love what you're doing, that it can make an impact. Okay. And you hone in on your craft. But the key is that also too, that you're able to be your authentic self. You don't want to be in no place, working a job or having a business or whatever, and you cannot be you. You want to be authentically who you are. And right here, and just like Musa was talking about in terms of the reading is freedom, reading also brings self-confidence. That aspect is key.
It's key for us, right? Because
That's key.
with that self-doubt and that fear.
Yep.
No, we don't think we're worthy.
Mm.
We
Ooh.
think we're not worthy. So no matter what white people say, stuff we say stuff way worse.
Because we bought into it. We bought into that.
Bought into that what was created, right? I get the system. Yep, buying into that lie. But once you free yourself of that garbage,
Yeah,
I still have those self-defeating thoughts. You
of
just
course.
notice them
Yes.
and just step right into them.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I was just reading it actually. The Fire Next Time. I know you read this. I'm Janie come lately on The Fire Next Time.
No, I haven't read old Big Eyes. I'm gonna have to
Okay.
read involved, man.
What our brother James Bond.
I'm gonna have to read old Big Eyes.
Oh man, that's all that he's able to see. You know what I'm saying? What was
Definitely
going
visionary,
on?
wasn't
Okay?
he? He was a
Yeah,
visionary.
visionary. He's so funny. All in love, y'all. You know he talking
He's
about
cold
James
though. Man,
Bond.
born is
For real.
cold. No question.
For real.
We
For
we
real.
do throw some jokes around, but that brother was cold.
Cold. Okay.
Paris, going to Paris, he was cold. No,
Yes.
but before his time with yeah,
Yes.
James Bond was cold. So I've read a lot of his essays, right? A lot of his readings, but I haven't read that book. So definitely,
Okay.
yeah. And
Yeah, he talked on. Let me just I want to see real quick. I underlined it. See if I can get it real quick for everybody because I thought that was so powerful. He talked about it in terms of being free. I can just pretty much sum it up. He was basically saying, oh, here it is. Oh, I got it. To defend oneself against a fear is simply to ensure that one will one day be conquered by it. Fears must be faced. As for one's wits, it is just not true that one can live by them, not that it is if one wishes really to live. So basically, in a nutshell, what he was saying is that if you really want to live, because we all going to have fears, he said you got to face the fears.
absolutely.
That's the key right there. But again, you know, like we are talking about, going back to the whole aspect of developing that culture of literacy in the Black community. Understanding our babies got to understand that reading is freedom. Reading is being self-confident. Reading gives you that aspect of understanding that you know your place in the world. You find out who you are. You find out, just like in a lot of different books and things that I'm reading and stuff, I'm like, oh my goodness, man. I'm like, I notice the books, I notice certain books that I read, I'm like, okay, I may start on the book or whatever, and it's, from a historical aspect, and I'm like, okay, I know how I am. I have to put it down, digest it, and then I may have to go pick up another book that's a little bit more kind of, a little more calm or something that, you know what I'm saying, where I don't really have to put on that
Right.
thinking
Yeah,
cap
yeah.
for real.
No,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean? And that's what I notice how I am. I'm that type of person, but that's okay. You know what I'm saying? So again, man, oh my goodness. Now what I want you to do, two last things real quick for us. I want you to give us 3 ways in which we can help, we can tell our families to start developing that culture of literacy. And the last thing I want you to tell us is, what book are you reading?
Hmm. Yeah, I love it. So 3 ways,
Mm-hmm.
to develop the culture of literacy. I mean, we're gonna double back to
Mm-hmm.
the conversation. I love. Did we say the extra talk?
Yep.
Um, I think us as parents really understanding how to engage our kids in dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that starts from when they're able to speak, right? So even as they go from toddler to early adolescence to mid to late, that conversation is really important. So I think that's one,
Mhm.
just really being able to connect with your children. I know for me, my kids now, we always had certain rituals,
Mhm.
and I know when we would be in that kitchen, it would be an opportunity to really talk, or for me to listen about their day. And as I just listen to them, so the ritual of literacy is listening to our kids, then I'm hearing things that I can kind of support them with to pull out bigger concepts. All the conversations about injustices and racism and all the concepts and the ideas really came in our kitchen. Listen to my kids talk about the society that they found themselves in as they got older. So
Mhm.
just like really being able to get to know your kids and know their interests,
Mhm.
to me is number two. Like if you know I think number two is once you find out what your kids are interested in, then they'll be less resistant to read something, whether it be a pamphlet, whether it be a magazine, whether it be like reading, watching something and journaling. So tapping into their interests, whether it's computers or animals, entertainment, music, and you can use that as an opportunity to help them become more literate based on what they're passionate about and based on their interests. That's my two. And then I think three. This just can't. I have so many, but my third would be like through cooking. Like I know, like, and when my father was a handyman, so he taught me literacy based on reading pamphlets and manuals and putting things together. But like making like recipes with your kids, like looking at those different recipes and making something fun. I mean, you can teach your kids a lot about um, literacy in terms of reading, in terms of math, right? So you can take that opportunity of eating, which is really big in our culture, right? The concept of food, and maybe making something with your kids, and then reading the instructions with them on how to create something. So those are the three things that just really came to my mind, and I think the fourth one
Okay.
for me, I'm doing one more.
Okay. I love it.
When we had movie, we took our kids to the movies, and it was like a movie like 12 Years a Slave or Fruitvale Station or something like very provocative.
Mhm.
We would sit in the car, like right in the movie parking lot, just talk or whatever. If you're taking a walk back to the movie theaters, whatever.
Yeah.
So like having engaging media, whether it's an engaging song, whether it's a controversial song, or whether it was a derogatory song.
Mhm.
When my kids were, because they listened to stuff that was a bit just like we did growing up.
Right.
But I use, or even if it was a TV show,
Mhm.
using that as an opportunity to teach your kids about literacy and bigger concepts and bigger ideas through media.
Mm. I love it. I love it. I'm gonna recap on that one. Number one, to make sure I got them right. The first one is conversation, the extra talk.
Yep.
Number two, finding out their interests, finding out your children's interests, engaging with them with that. Number three, cooking with your family. Okay, like you said, cooking, eating as well, because you talked about in terms of, the food aspect, of course, being a big part of our culture. And then the last one you said movie night, or not just movie night, just media, period. So it could be a movie, it could be a documentary, whatever. And then afterwards, y'all engage in conversation, after that and talking about, especially if it's something like you said, provocative or, something that's, really edgy or whatever the case may be. So I got them right.
Yep. Perfect.
Mm, I love it. I love it, y'all. These are nuggets, y'all. And I forgot to mention, when y'all listen to Real Reading Talk, make sure you have your notebooks and pens, okay? Crayons, coloring pencils, whatever it is you like to write with. Make sure you have it. See, we drop nuggets here. I have guests on here, who are brilliant, and they are confident, they read, they are doing great things in the community. So I'm about empowering our communities. And so, when you're getting that information, you need to, a lot of times you're not going to remember the stuff that are listening to. That's why I have, please, I'll keep me a notebook with me. I got notebooks in my purse, little miniature ones. My son, for the Eid, all he could afford to give me was a couple of little spiral little
Yeah.
notebooks. So I said,
Love it.
that's all right. I said, that's
Love
okay. I said, because guess what? They will be used, and I sure use them puppies. Okay, I mean, with all my whatever. If it's something that's on my mind, I'm listening to something or whatever. Somebody need to jot down. I got my handy dandy notebook right there. Okay, so that's what we need to do. All right, and I love too how the journaling piece,
Oh
that
yeah.
right there, that's key. And that's something too that we really, really got to make sure we are encouraging our children to do more of. Because I think
Yeah.
sometimes with kids, especially with Black children, they think that, well, if they don't know how to, write a sentence in the correct way or whatever the case, so they figure that, oh, okay, well, I don't know if I should be writing.
Right.
No, you being an educator, wouldn't you say that even if they're not writing in the
Oh,
structural form, they should be right, even if it's like some words, maybe their thought, maybe in their mind immediately, they're
absolutely.
like, I'm mad, and they put, I'm mad.
Yeah. It's fluency. You're building up fluency and
Mhm.
frequency. Yeah, that's not that has you can write for for many different reasons,
Right.
and just getting them comfortable with the process of writing.
Mm. Mm.
Really, that's what I started with some of my students when I was out in LA. Like they wrote about gangs. That's what they wanted to write about. But I was taking them. I was using their knowledge about gangs, their prior knowledge to talk about World War I, World War II, the
Mm.
French Revolution, and
Mm.
how some violence is violence, and it looks very, very different in your neighborhood, but it's based on the same concept: territory,
Mm.
power, et
Mm.
cetera. So yeah, like I think prior knowledge is getting kids just to write things down. It's that alone time,
Right.
getting to know yourself, getting to clarify your thoughts.
Mm.
Really,
Mm. That's deep. That's deep. Yeah, wow, man. Again, you dropping it, and this is just so awesome, and it's so needed.
yes, it is.
Definitely,
Yes, it is.
definitely. We definitely appreciate you. And my last question, like I said, what you reading?
Yeah, it's a book, and I don't want to mispronounce his name, but the book is called Grandmother's Hands.
Okay,
Name
I'm
is
writing that down.
Resma Menachem, Resma
Okay,
Menakem. It's called My Grandmother's Hands.
my grandmother's hands. Okay.
It's about racialized trauma,
Oh.
and his perspective is really dope when he talks about. He doesn't call it white supremacy; he calls it white body supremacy, because he says
Huh.
if it's hysterical, it's historical. So us as Black people, when we have if it's a situation where we want to like soothe a white person, or fear comes up, right? We feel it in our body. If a
Mm.
person feels threatened to want to annihilate us, or they want to run away, right? They
Mm.
feel it. So he says the key to really dismantling racism is to notice the body sensation, because that's been passed down for generations. So he says if it's hysterical, then usually it's trauma passed down that's historical. That's one of the premises of his book. So it's right on time, because it is talking about racialized trauma and how to free yourself of that. It's to really notice what happens in the body, because that's the first thing when you have a reaction, you feel it in your body.
Yep. Oh my
So
goodness.
it's
Yeah, one of the
really
places I feel
enjoying.
stuff is my stomach.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, he said
That's
that. Yeah.
deep.
So that's what I'm reading right now. I'm enjoying it too.
That's good. Oh, wow. Well, that definitely, again, that's going to go in the description box as well when I upload this podcast on Anchor. Great platform to, if you were trying to start a podcast, great, easy way. It made it a whole lot easier because I had actually started a podcast 3 years ago, and it was the, technicalities of it that I was like, that was slowing me up. So I
Okay.
definitely appreciate Anchor coming up with this concept. So being able to just easily upload it, and
Okay.
you guys, yeah, definitely check it out on there, Spotify as well. And again, I want to thank our dear brother Musa in the house, the
Yeah.
educator, all right, mentor. I gotta look, even though it's not a long list, but my memory, I'm like, okay, wait a minute, hold up. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's right, educator,
Yes.
consultant, entertainer, writer, and youth development professional. 20
Yes.
years in education, y'all, mentoring, community building, equity. All right, all centered around racism work. Married 23 years to an awesome veterinarian and 2 young adult children in college. How can they find you, Musa, and tell everybody what you are doing right now?
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram as the real Mansa, TheRealMansa, or Facebook. You can just look me up as Morris Ervin, MorrisErvin. Those are the fastest ways you can get in touch with me. What I'm doing currently now is I have a couple of offerings on Zoom. I'm doing a anti-racism personal development, like 4-week series, Monday nights, an hour and a half, or really 2 hours. We're diving into like I said, like the historical trauma in racism, and I'm providing audiences, white and black, with the tools and the awareness and the consciousness to have conversation where we can confront each other, challenge each other, and also support each other, about the parts we play in terms of systemic racism. I also do my self-care class, Self-Care Sundays. I do a Wake Up Monday, just meditation, music, and storytelling. And also I do personal coaching sessions also. In addition to that, I have a couple of opportunities to travel again, even though with COVID. So I'm looking forward to working with a couple of private schools, a couple of co-ops around, teaching them how to connect with their children using mindfulness and some communication practices that I've learned in my journey. So just looking forward, and eventually I definitely want to work on opening up my own school. It's going to happen. I need to start writing my charter. I need to, I have a board. I need a few more board members. I want to start raising these funds. So that's next on the horizon. So my next move, I want to be my best move. So,
Oh, love
yeah.
it. Oh, and that just, oh, you said school. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely want to, any way I can contribute with that.
We gotta get this. We gotta get something, and you talking about a nugget in a gym and a resource that's accessible
Yeah.
for all, but for us first.
Yes.
We want to discriminate, but this is about us. It's about black families. It's about black children. It's about black people. It's about black culture. It's about black consciousness.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. We gotta heal, man. I mean, we you talk about enslavement, then peonage, Jim Crow, discrimination upon discrimination upon discrimination. I mean, it's like, just like Dr. Joy DeGruy, she talked about in terms of, okay, it's like you hit me in the leg, but then you want me to heal, but you still keep hitting me in the leg over and over again. It's like, duh, it's not going to heal because you keep beating me in my freaking leg.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Wow. Well, again, I appreciate you. We all appreciate you.
Thank you so much. This is so much fun.
Yes, I'm so happy. Oh, it definitely was. Definitely. Oh my goodness, man. And God willing, inshallah, I gotta have you back on because especially too, we're gonna talk about it another time. I want to talk about more delving into that mindfulness has been whitewashed. When you said I was like, oh, another show. For real. I'm like, another show. You gotta definitely come on.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you again. And I thank everybody for tuning in for another episode of Real Reading Talk, where we talk about those real systemic issues, unfiltered, no sugarcoating, about why there are low levels of literacy in the Black community and ways in which we are combating those together. Thank you all for joining. And make sure you subscribe to my podcast and make sure that you go and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Reading is freedom as well. And I'm also a reading tutor, pre-K through 4th grade. If you're looking for a reading tutor, go to my website, abclearntutoring.site. And last part, if you are interested in donating to our organization, ABC Read, all right, ABC, that all things literacy, ABC Read, we give away books, like I mentioned, Fire Next Time, books that represent Black people, Black culture, Black experiences to our Black families in particular. No, I don't discriminate. We don't discriminate, but we taking care of home first because we need that help big time. All right. So go to abcread.org to donate to our organization as well. Thank you,
Yeah.
everybody, and peace.
Peace.